for being present here in my channel, guys. Yeah, I know that, Mark. I don't know why that is the case. I guess that I have a scene on XSplit here, some kind of overlay setting, and that automatically mutes the mic. So I guess I know what happened there. Still, thank you for visiting my channel. This is my second episode of the of my flight training series of season 1. I will go through some announcements here just to make clear what the whole idea is. I've recently published a introductory video on my YouTube channel explaining what my flight training is all about. I would really like to get as close to a real-world instrument training in Flight Simulator as I possibly can. Now, I'm a newbie to Flight Simulator, although I have used Flight Simulator in the past, but I'm relatively new to the Cessna Skylane, as you can see here, made by A2A Simulations. I'm relatively new to PilotEdge, which we are on right now. And I would really like to learn how to fly in Flight Simulator. I've built my own Saitek cockpit, as you can see in that introductory video. And here I am streaming my very first basic flight. Well, I'm using Active Sky Next for real-world weather, but as you can see, and perhaps notice yourself, currently at Oceano County, there's very bad weather, thunderstorms that are rolling in. Although when we look outside, it doesn't seem to look that nasty. But I'm hearing some thunder rolls in the background. So, well, anyway, I'm not planning to fly actually in this episode. I'm trying to drill and practice some very basic procedures of how to start up the Cessna and how to shut it down, and perhaps some taxiing. So it's going to be a very slow-paced kind of introduction here. I guess also part of the initial stage of this season. And this first season is about, I guess, for me, attaining my private pilot proficiency in Flight Simulator. Ultimately, I would like to be more instrument rated, but I have to start somewhere, and first I need to master some very fundamental flight skills. So that's the first part of my training. So season 1 will be dedicated to my private pilot flying skills, while season 2 could then be dedicated to my instrument rating flying skills. So that will be a kind of like a narrative or a journey of me acquiring flight skills in Flight Simulator. So that's what season 1 is all about. Also, in general, this channel, and that goes for the entire Uncertified Pilot project, I'm not here to necessarily teach you anything about aviation. I'm a newbie. This is more about me learning about aviation and connecting with you guys to learn new stuff, or correcting me in my flight procedures, or teaching me about something other than flying that I can use to improve my my Flight Simulator experience. But if you're looking for experts that can really, perhaps real world pilots that can teach you something new, or something specific about flying, go to visit those guys, because I'm new here. At the same time though, what I think does make my channel interesting is I will acquire these skills over time. And so you can follow me along and have a sense of how that experience is like, and perhaps it might inspire you too to pimp up your, boost up your flight skills yourself in Flight Simulator. So this is not necessarily a teaching kind of channel. It's more like sharing my experience learning how to fly the Cessna Skylane by A2A Simulations, a very realistic general aviation aircraft, how to deal with PilotEdge and passing for all the V ratings and I ratings, flying and executing, carrying out all those real-world flight procedures. Really complex stuff. I mean, it seems very daunting to me currently. But that's the kind of the gist of my channel and this particular series, flight training series. Also, you will not see any flying in airliners. I will only fly the Cessna Skylane. I think it's really boring to fly airliners, especially because and I see that a lot of times on Twitch, it's just turning on the autopilot and just a static view of a plane flying itself. Now, rest assured, I do not underestimate the complexity of flying an airliner from A to B and configuring all that stuff, but I think it's not that fun. I think it's much more challenging to fly VFR, let alone flying by hand and not using the autopilot at all. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I don't know if it's too challenging, but next to flying only the Cessna Skyline, I will try or aim or intend not to use the autopilot at any point during my flight training. I would like to fly entirely by hand and passing for all the V ratings and I ratings just using the yoke and not touching the autopilot at all. I've actually bought the GTN 750 some time ago. I have that software and already tried it out here in the A2A Simulations, and it looks gorgeous. It works perfectly, but then again, it kind of like lets down on the whole flying experience, at least in my opinion. I mean, you can just program your entire flight. It's almost like having some kind of an airliner module in your, an FMC in your Cessna cockpit, and you can just press the button and it will just fly. It even shows you traffic on PilotEdge, and see, it shows you where all the other aircraft are, which is really neat. But I think that those are exactly the skills that I would like to learn myself, and makes flying much more authentic in many ways. So I've decided not to turn on the GPS, activate the GPS here in my Skyline, and just stick to the basic configuration to make flying much more dynamic and active and hands-on, in my opinion. All right, now autopilot, no GPS, and well, and kind of like a general remark, this will not be a channel where I'm just casually flying from A to B and just looking to the scenery and just enjoying myself. I will enjoy myself, but mostly because of flight training. I would like to learn how to fly in Flight Simulator and get as close to that instrument rating as I possibly can. So each episode is dedicated on some kind of flight scale, procedure, some kind of setting, some kind of goal. And as I progress, I hope that my seasons, my Flight Simulator series, kind of like represents this journey of, well, how you can attain mastery, or how you can attain these flight skills yourself in Flight Simulator. So that's kind of like the mission. I've made some notes just to say before I officially start doing stuff, just to make clear what you can expect of the channel. Also, I don't plan to apologize. Thank you, A2A Pilot, for following. I'm not apologizing for the slow start of the series, because I'm a newbie. I need to start somewhere, right? I need to figure out this airplane. I need to figure out how to taxi. I need to figure out how to make a safe departure from Oceano. So I am guessing that the season will start at a much more slower pace, and, well, gradually will increase in content and complexity, density, and that kind of stuff. So please allow me to learn here. I guess it will start in a much more slower pace. So to let you know. Also, I will always fly in bad weather condition. I've got a question. Beastward, just a quick question. How come the chat is in a really long slow mode? You only have a few viewers. I don't know. Is it in a slow mode? Can I didn't put it in slow mode. It is unchecked in my box, so I don't know what's going on there. I think I've done exactly the same thing myself. Remove GPS from, yeah, guy. I know what you're thinking. It's much more dynamic, much more classic, much more, I don't know, that is flying. Using the yoke yourself, at least that's my opinion. Anyway, continuing with the list. I'm using real-world weather conditions. I'm using Active Sky.NEXT currently at the moment, and I will use it each and every time. There's a drone bonanza, I guess, that is taking off. But I will use Active Sky.NEXT for real-world weather conditions, and I will not reset the weather if the weather is bad, as is currently the case at Oceano County. It's very bad weather, thunderstorms all over the place. So I'm actually using real-world weather apps, and I would really like to master forecasting, weather forecasting. So I'm using an app which might be interesting to you guys as well. Which is called Storm, on iOS at least, on iPhone. I don't know if I can show you guys, but the reflection is bad. But it shows you real weather conditions, air masses, front lines, radar. It's great. It's actually recommended by me by a real-world pilot. So I'm using that by day just to figure out on what days I can fly in Flight Simulator. And if the weather is bad, let's say IFR, I will not fly. Perhaps I will stream, but I will be grounded, and perhaps we can chat or do some other stuff. Okay, so if it's bad weather, I will not fly. And I will just show you some stuff that I will do each and every flight to plan the weather. I am completely a newbie to how to plan for weather forecasting and that kind of stuff, but we will learn together, I'm hoping. Next up, the checklist. I'm using a self-made, perhaps you guys know already, I made this. It's called the unofficial student checklist, made specifically for A2A's Cessna Skylane. And if you go to uncertifiedpilot.com, my personal blog, where I also explain this entire series, and I've documented. Well, there's a lot of information there. I've also published this checklist, and you can download it yourself for free, just a PDF. But I spent months creating this. I mean, A2A has its own checklist too. But I have added many more items that you would actually go through by watching YouTube movies about Cessna Skylanes. Well, there's a lot of content out there. I've read many forums just to understand why those items should be on the checklist, and in that order and in that particular subset of items, which was very educational. If you would like to learn more about how your airplane works, design your own checklist. It's a really nice assignment, study assignment, I believe. But I've made it, and you can download it too. And I've now come to version 2.1. So if you would like to follow me along in my checks and my procedures, and perhaps you've downloaded an earlier version, update to version 2.1 and you can follow me along. And if I upgrade to another version, version 2.2, based on the stuff that you guys can suggest to me, or the stuff that we might be confronted with while flying, saying, hey, that doesn't make sense, we should change that, I will change it, and you guys can download it too. That's a checklist. What was the name of the app? Storm. It's the Storm app. Great app. Next up, if I don't know, yeah. Also, obviously, I will come across stuff that I don't know about. For example, the weather forecasting, or during flying, or you guys ask me something and I don't know the answer to, I will write those things down so that in between flights, in between my streams, I can look that up. And in the next episode, I can address those questions and show you what I've learned and perhaps I found the answer to. So please, if you have any questions, drop them down in the chat. And if I come across any stuff that is confusing to me or I don't know the answers to, I will write them down and look for the answers after the stream. I really like to learn how things work. And lastly, obviously, enjoy the channel, study along, and please use the chat to suggest to me other training resources, correct me if I'm wrong, help me to become a better flight simulator pilot, and perhaps we have a very fun time together in these coming months or perhaps years. I'm hoping it wouldn't take me years to get my V rating, my V3 rating in PilotEdge. As I mentioned in the introductory video that I made, you can find it on YouTube or on my site. I'm using the PilotEdge check rides, the training ratings, as my milestones as I progress through my training series. So eventually I will go through each V rating, the VFR ratings and the I ratings, to get a sense of if I've really mastered those flight skills, so I can really genuinely call myself an instrument-rated virtual flight simulator pilot, which is very cool. If you don't know about PilotEdge, go check them out. PilotEdge.net, I believe. It really, in my case, it really brings life to Flight Simulator. We're also now on PilotEdge. Each and every flight we are on PilotEdge. Great guys, great customer support, and a great initiative, great project. Okay, now that's it. Started my first stream with the mic off. Oh my gosh. But we are here now. So what I would like to do now is just show you some tabs, some browser tabs that I've opened. And why? Because those will be part of each and every episode that I will do in these coming months. We're now at Oceano, as you can see here. And well, I love maps, first of all. Sectional charts look just gorgeous, also as wallpapers. I've made various ones and used them as wallpapers or desktop pictures on my computers. So first, obviously, when we go to fly in these following episodes, we will go to SkyVector, skyvector.com, free access to aviation maps, which was an entire discovery to me that those are actually freely accessible on the net. It's just great. So we will use those to plan our flights. And which is also very nice to watch too, PilotEdge has its own videos, workshop videos, where the CEO of PilotEdge is actually teaching customers or visitors, pilots, other flight simulator pilots, about how to interpret and use these charts, which is high, super quality content. It's really great, and they discuss the various airspaces, the airways, how you use ADC and chat with the tower and with the air traffic controllers to get from A to B. Is really great content. So if you're into PilotEdge or like to get familiar with PilotEdge or, well, improve your skills in PilotEdge, search on YouTube. I've also have some playlists, I believe, on my on Certified Pilot channel, and you can check them out. It's really great. So I've watched the first few ones, so I have some understanding of how these airspaces work. But obviously, when I progress through my flights, we will obviously learn more. Let alone all the IFR stuff. So this is just the basic VFR sectional chart. Obviously there are many more. There are various buttons here. I mean, this stuff, I have no clue. I mean, I know that there are some VOR beacons here, but this is all new to me, except for this. And I guess that in the first part of the season, this will be our main chart. But I know it's fun. I mean, I'm really excited to see how we'll learn new stuff about aviation, also through you guys, through chat. But it goes even further than that. I will not like to stop here. I would also like to include weather briefings. We're using real-world weather, right? As these thunder roll sounds are in the background. This is not a perfect day for flying. Although, while I started the stream, here San Luis Airport was showing marginal VFR weather, and now it shows VFR weather. Same goes for Santa Maria, so the weather seems to improve. But anyway, going beyond these METARs, there's a website which real-world pilots use, and I would like to use too with you guys. It's called aviationweather.gov. It's the official resource, or one of many resources of pilots to check out the weather. Well, why not use those? I think it's so cool to get skill or get a better understanding in how to apply those charts to Flight Simulator and to see whether we can actually make a safe flight from A to B. Especially in terms of VFR, we have to ensure safe separation between clouds. We cannot fly through clouds. What's the cloud ceiling? Well, all kinds of that stuff is really interesting to me. Also, I just love weather and how that works. So I would like to include this too, each and every flight, just to see if we can apply it and learn from it, which is great, I think. I can go to some other pages here, which we go through in this exact same order. I've already studied the legenda and the kind of the gist of all these different maps, which I will go through the next time, I believe, just for time's sakes. So here you can see icing IFR, where actually Oceano is about here, I guess. This is San Francisco, so we're about here? I guess we're here. Can I just scroll down a bit? Yeah, and as you can see, I guess that Oceano is just part of this angle here, of this very tiny area, part of this IFR range. And these, well, some weather experts here have said, well, this area, this particular area is currently in IFR conditions. Well, it's very useful to know before you go to fly, right? So these are graphical air mets, as they are called. Then there are some other charts, also air mets, sigmets, significant weather. As you can see here on the west coast, there is an indication of significant weather. Well, those are probably the thunderstorms that we're hearing right now in the background. Convective weather that we should avoid at all times. Well, we're just staying on the ground in this episode. I would like to taxi though, but not take off yet. I just like to drill and practice those procedures. Thank you for following M3MO Zulu. Okay, next up, this is the satellite imagery, which is very Minecraft-like. Yeah, here we are. Well, clouds everywhere. That's kind of like what this is telling us. But again, I would like to acquire more skill, more better understanding of how to interpret these maps to make our flights more safe. Next up, wind speeds. Also quite interesting. Well, as you can see, and that confirms the earlier charts, the high wind speeds are again on the ocean on the west side here. There's actually a, let's go back to the first chart. Yeah, there's a warm front here and a colder one, or a low pressure area and a high pressure area. I guess this is just a low front and a, well, I will search these things up and I will share with you next time. But again, on the front lines on these maps, there's always bad weather. And well, that confirms if we look at the other maps here. In terms of wind speeds, well, here precipitation, I guess, or humidity. I don't know what the radar plot actually shows. But bad weather all around on the west coast. I believe the storm app showed me that tomorrow the weather will improve and Friday will be only sunny, great weather. I'm actually planning to fly tomorrow too, and Friday, and perhaps even Saturday. So it would be fun if you guys join me. Just having fun here in Flight Simulator. Again, some other charts, and this is just the ordinary METAR, which is more graphically detailed, I believe, than in SkyVector. You can just see colors here, but here there's also some wind direction and some other numbers here. I guess they have to do with this stuff here in on the bottom. Then finally, NOTAMs, another that's a different website of the FAA. So I guess that Oceano doesn't have any NOTAMs, but let's try. Lima 52, I believe, is the abbreviated code. No active NOTAMs. I like to include this too. I don't know if PilotEdge is actually also using those NOTAMs. I don't think so, but let's just include it in the planning. It's going to be cool. So you're going to be training every day. Well, not every day, but often. I really like to fly, so I'm not really comfortable at publishing some kind of a schedule, especially during work. Perhaps I'm tired and I won't do it, but at least a couple of times during the week. I mean, I love to fly, and it always makes me relaxed, so you can find me a lot of times here on stream, I guess around this time, after work here in the Netherlands. I'm living in the Netherlands. NOTAMs, and finally PilotEdge. Always flying on PilotEdge. This is the page where you can file a flight plan. I've never filed a flight plan before on PilotEdge. Also, you should only file a flight plan if you're flying IFR, because that will then show up on the radar at the PilotEdge air traffic controllers. Although you can also file a VFR flight plan, as you would in the real world, but that is only useful to the PilotEdge Aware. I don't know how it is called, but they also have a page, a Google Map page of the West Coast, the particular coverage service area of PilotEdge, Southern California, and you can see all the different users that are currently flying. You can see those as icons flying on the map, and if you put in your flight plan, if you hover over those airplanes, you can see their flight plans, their filed flight plans. And so if you file a VFR flight plan, if you would hover around my aircraft, you would also find this information. That would be cool too, but isn't applicable for this flight because we just stay on the ground. So I hope you guys enjoy. I would like to make it a little bit more real world like, not just for the channel's sake, but also just for me learning. I really like this stuff, and it is and because of this third party. Thank you for hosting Geekdoma. Thank you. I really like to approach this whole flight training stuff in a real world manner and just see where it goes. And I think that's really fun. Okay, so enough of that. Let's switch back to, thank you for following, truck drivers, aviation. Okay, that's a marriage, a nice marriage, I guess. Switching back, bum. Okay, still the mic is not muted. I started this stream with a muted mic. My gosh, my first stream. But I will learn not only how to fly, but also how to use XSplit. Thank you for following, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've done the whole briefing stuff. I've showed you what this channel is all about. In the introductory video, I've also shown you how the overlay works. So a small kind of remark here. You can see, let's see if I can do it. This particular strap, right? That refers to PilotEdge. So PilotEdge offers check rides. It's VFR check rides and IFR check rides, and this particular strap shows me or shows you guys on what level I am. So currently I have no V rating at all, so I'm at a V0 rating, which doesn't exist really. I have to start from scratch, but that shows along the way during my seasons what I'm doing. Okay, next up, I really like to start with doing the exterior pre-flight, I guess. So tonight I would like to get used to the flow of things. Something that I noticed in some other YouTube movie is the fact that some checklists, subset items on a checklist, should be memorized, and more carried out as a flow. And so on the checklist in the yellow headers, and you can follow me along, visit uncertifiedpilot.com and you can find this checklist too. You can, I've put in between brackets certain graphical flows that I found out that might be useful to better memorize the order of different items. So for example, if you go to the 5th checklist, reset cabin, if you follow those items along in the cockpit, it kind of like seems like a box, like a squared box that you're following when you're looking at the cockpit, and that helps you to remember those items. And I've done that too with some other subsets here in the checklist, which might be useful. Let's see, please turn off slow mode. Not enough of slow mode to make sense. Yeah, but slow mode isn't on. It's unchecked here, but I can check it and uncheck it again, and perhaps that works. I don't know, guys. Let me know, because I'm totally new to Twitch. Does that work? Let me know. Guys, how fun it is to meet you finally, and that you're following the stream. Cool. Okay, so let's do that. I would like to start with the exterior pre-flight inspection, or perhaps we just start with checklist 5, just the cold and dark check. So what I've learned is that, and I will turn TrackIR on, is that before you make a flight, and as you can see, I've got my my pitot torpedo tube cover on and my tie downs and my control wheel lock. So this is a complete cold and dark setting. The first thing that you do is actually verify that everything is dark and there are no buttons on or flap levers that are on or used or whatever. So you can make sure that nothing weird happens once you do turn on the batteries. That's the whole idea. And that is what checklist 5 is all about, I believe. Reset cabin. Yeah. So let's start there. And as I mentioned, in between brackets in the headers, I've tried to find some kind of a flow here, which to me, checklist 5 seems like a box kind of a flow, rectangular box. So let's see if that still applies. So the first thing that we need to do before we like to start a flight, which we're going to do each and every flight throughout this season, is remove the control wheel lock. Makes sense, right? So let's do that. Boom, there it is. So now we can freely move the yoke. Very useful for a flight. Next up, parking brakes are set. They are. Here are the parking brakes. Well, I'm not using the mouse to control all the different switches here. I'm using my Saitek panel. If you're new to this channel and you're really liking what you see, visit uncertifiedpilot.com. I have an introductory video, episode 1 of this season, in which I in a very detailed manner explain to you what this series is all about and explain you the Cessna, and it's really animated and fun, and also show you some real footage of my cockpit here. So I have all the different Saitek switch panels and yokes and stuff, so you have a much better idea of what I'm sitting in front of here and what I'm using. Let's see. Parking brake. Yeah, parking brake set. Life jackets and oxygen. Okay. Surely that is not part of this virtual airplane, but still it's a good check if we go overseas or stuff. Well, let's say that that is checked. Fire extinguisher, I actually have a fire extinguisher here. Checked. Cabin windows open, and you need to open those in, I guess, all A2A aircraft. Well, now it isn't really necessary because the door is open, but actually A2A Simulations, the guys there programmed in that if you close the door without opening a window, if the engine is turned off, the windows fog up, which is great. But well, to counter that, you need to open a window to get in some fresh air. So that's what I'm doing right now here, even though the door is still open. ELT, emergency locator transmitter, it's over here, and that's kind of like a device that goes on when we crash or before we crash. You can also turn it to the on position, and it submits, transmits a particular signal on the guard frequency, 1 to 1.5, I believe, so that if we're crashed, then other guys can rescue us, and well, we might survive. That's the whole idea. So we should check that is in auto. I guess that means that when we crash, it automatically turns on. I hope that is the whole idea of it. Set to auto. Cabin air heat and defrost. Yeah, it's over there behind the yoke. I can remove the yoke. So that's this stuff. So I've pulled out the cabin air, so that means that fresh air would come in if the engine is started, because that, well, pushes in or pulls in air, I guess. Or is the cabin air coming from here? And it's just when we are moving and flying, this air is coming in over here. Perhaps that makes more sense. I don't know for sure, because there is no ventilation coming through the dashboard, I believe. I don't know. Yeah. So that's checked. Next up. Flaps retracted. Well, they are up, and also physically on the airplane you can see here they are up. Yep. Levers are fully aft. Yeah, and the prop can just remain there, full in, and the mixture is fully aft too. Alternate static air pressure is in, is checked. Pitot heat is off, and obviously I can look at my Saitek panel here. Let's turn off TrackIR. I've made a light here, put it on my yoke so I can see the buttons, which is very useful, but still, perhaps I should put in some other kind of light here that makes it more easy to read my switch panel again. Okay, continue. Avionics master, is it off? It is off. Yeah. And pitot heat we already checked. Lights off, but the beacon always remains on, which seems weird, but it is actually the case. I've viewed many YouTube movies of real-world pilots, and they always leave the beacon on. And the idea is, obviously now the battery isn't on, so the beacon light isn't showing up, right, on the tail of the airplane. But once we do turn on the batteries, it automatically turns off. It doesn't have any mechanical or technical damage to that it automatically turns on. But the idea is that any pilot who would walk around the ramp would immediately know something is going to happen there with that airplane, and I should be careful not coming too close. That's the idea. Also, I've read by some other instructor that said, and also if you shut down the airplane, or think you've shut down the airplane as a pilot, and you walk away to the FBO and you turn around and you see the beacon still, well, showing up, emitting light, then you know that the batteries aren't turned off. So it's also a double check, I guess. I guess the first reason is the most important. So it always stays on. You actually never touch the beacon. It always turns on. It always stays on. Fuel tank selector, verify that it's left or right to prevent cross-feeding. Yeah, that's a good one, and we will turn it to both once we start taxi. Alternator and battery off. That's also something that I learned. I guess that is, I don't know if the early flight simulator versions simulated that correctly. But usually this was one entire master switch. You can just put them both on at the same time. I wasn't really aware there are two different buttons. One is the alternator or the generator, you can say, and the other is the battery. And obviously A2A Simulations simulates those individual buttons in a really realistic manner, which is very, very cool. But anyway, just sharing my own learning experience. Those are actually two buttons, the alternator and the battery. And the magnetos are off, and they are. And my Saitek panel, yeah, it works. Okay, so we now know for sure that the Cessna is cold and dark, which is a good thing. A basic thing, but it's a good thing. And as you also might have noticed, we flowed in a rectangular way. We started here with the control wheel lock. We moved down with the parking brake, then beneath the seat the oxygen and life vests, the fire extinguishers in between here, between the seats. Then we move up to the windows. Then we go to, so we're now around the corner, the ELT. We move on here to the cabin air flaps, the levers, fuel selector. Yeah, that's also part of that, I guess. And then here to the avionics master, the lights, the beacon, battery, and the magnetos. So already we can do this by heart, by just following this in a rectangular kind of fashion. And always, I've also saw that in many YouTube movies. The guys recommend you to afterwards take your checklist with you always and verify that you didn't miss any items, which makes sense. But still, it's nice to have a flow. Also, I guess that in some future episodes, I won't go through each flight from start. I mean, really from cold and dark. Perhaps I will start after the exterior pre-flight, because that's a really time-consuming bit of the flight. And once I've done it a couple of times, I guess that would be quite familiar to you guys as well. And we can just start with the engine start and get on with it. But still, as I already mentioned in the first episodes of this flight simulator series, I will include it because I need to learn it, and I would like to share with you guys too. And perhaps if you can share with me your suggestions of how to improve my flight performance skills, please let me know. Okido. So pre-flight interior inspection. So now we're going to see if these systems actually work. I mean, we now know that they are off, but we should also check before we fly if they actually work. So battery on, which means not the alternator. And I will not use the mouse, I will use my switch panel. So battery on, bloop, there it goes. see some lights go on. The clock is on. You can see that we have fuel in the left and right tank, which is a good thing. And some annunciator messages here, low oil pressure, obviously, and vacuum left and right, obviously, because the engine isn't on, right? So that's a good thing. We don't see any low fuel message, and that's the one that we need to look out for in this early stage. And it confirms, because here you can see that this gauge is also showing fuel quantity in the air wings, in the wings. So that's a good thing. Then lights all on. And you might say, well, why? Landing lights on, taxi lights on, strobe lights on, nav lights on, beacon is always on. Now, panel lights don't need to get on. And, if I remember correctly, the pitot heat on. Yeah, I put those on. Actually, I should have removed the pitot tube cover first, which I'm going to do right now. Whoop. Pitot cover, remove. Let's remove the tie downs and wheel chocks at the same time while we're at it. Now we are going to go outside and we're going to check. And well, I've got a bug here at EZDOK. I'm using EZDOK to, well, get some more realistic head shake movements while we are using TrackIR. But unfortunately, EZDOK messes up A2A's views here. So I can only go through them in an orderly fashion, in the right way, by going backwards, only using this arrow. So I'm sorry, but that's a bug. I hope it gets fixed soon, but that's the only way to do it. So what I'm going to do is going to the front of the airplane and check the the stall warning. You can hear it beep, which is a good thing. And oh, don't press the views. Go through it like this way. Yeah. So we go along, and we're going to go to the front of the airplane and have a look if those lights are on. The taxi lights are on, landing lights are on. You can see the nav light, strobe light on that wing. On the right wing, you can see it too. Yeah, strobe lights, and behind you can see the beacon light over here. Yep. Now we can also go to the back of the airplane, to here, and you can see that here's also a nav light that is on, and again the beacon light is also showing. So that is checked. We didn't check the pitot. There it is. So, and well, it shows up red, which means that it is hot. So it is working. And now we're back in the cockpit, and we can turn this off. Okay. So that is actually working. So we can turn all that stuff off. Landing lights off, taxi lights off, strobe lights off, nav lights off, strobe beacon is always on, and pitot heat is also off. Okay, continuing with the checklist. Stall warning lights, pitot heat off. Yeah, we did that. Avionics master on. Avionics master on. Beep. Yeah, that's the autopilot beep. I guess so. Everything is on. Then we are going to the autopilot on and test illumination. We saw that. Flaps full down and sync. Yeah, so we should. Yeah. So the idea is not only to put them down. That's PilotEdge. Let's turn it to CTAF. Yeah, I guess that no one is here, so we don't get that chatter while I'm talking. Yeah. So what did I say? Yeah, the flaps. So we should put down the flaps fully down, but also watch the flaps go down physically on the wing and to see if they come down in the same rate. Because if they don't, they act like ailerons, and you are in big trouble while you're flying. So that's the kind of idea here. So have a look at the flaps. They come down just right. Flaps. Then the DME radio, which is here beneath, is on. Then the autopilot we move up, I guess. Autopilot, transponder, ADF, com radio. Yeah, we just move up. So everything is on. The transponder here is on mode VFR 1200. That's good. ADF, fine. Everything here is on. Audio panel is also good. Then the annunciator panel, I guess. Yeah, test. Yeah, so we should test whether all these lights are actually working. Perhaps the low fuel is just broken and it isn't on, not because we don't have low fuel, but because the lights are not working. Well, believe me, those kinds of errors actually happen in the real world. So we need to test Well, they all work, so these readings are correct. Yeah. Audio control of fuel. Yeah, annunciator panel, fuel tank quantity. Yeah, so we move over to here. Fuel is good. We should do that in the exterior check as well to check whether we actually have that fuel in the wings. But still, avionics master off, and then the batteries off again. That is the pre-flight interior inspection. There's a drone Bonanza landing again here at Oceano, generated by PilotEdge, which is very cool that they also generate these drones also on airways, just to give a more realistic sense of being in some dynamic airspace. I think that's really cool. Okay, so the first thing that we did was reset the cabin, make sure that everything was cool and dark. We did that, and then you move on to the pre-flight interior inspection, and then you check whether these systems actually work before you're going to fly. And what kind of a flow I mentioned here? Pac-Man. Oh yeah, that's a difficult one to visualize, I guess. But what we did was we started here, turn on the batteries, turn on all the lights and the pitot heat, then we moved outside. Well, if the SDOK bug wasn't there, we walked around the back of the airplane all around to see if the lights were on, and then we ended here at the wing, the stall warning. And then we got into the cockpit again, turned off all the lights again and the pitot heat and the batteries, I guess, or no, not yet. Not the batteries, but all the lights and the pitot heat. Then we turn on the avionics, and then I guess where were the flaps? Were the flaps in the beginning? No, then the avionics master, autopilot, then the flaps, and then you move up and you go to that direction. Yeah. Okie-doke. I should memorize those. Something to do while cycling or under the shower, or just to visualize the cockpit while running and going through these flows, and always afterwards check whether you didn't miss any items. Okay, that's the pre-flight interior inspection. Going well. And I have to say that because I made this student checklist, again, for the new guys here on the channel, go to uncertifiedpilot.com. There are a lot of resources there, including this unofficial student checklist of the Cessna Skyline 182 that I made. Took me a couple of months, really, by studying YouTube, movies, and other resources to include many more checklist items on this checklist than the original checklist that A2A provides for learning purposes. But you can download it for free too. Version 2.1 is current, and when I upgrade or update, I will mention it on the stream too. Okay, next up is then the exterior pre-flight. Well, as I mentioned, we need to go around the airplane in clockwise direction because of this weird bug. The latest version of EZDOK 1.18 messes up A2A's views, so we can only use this backwards arrow to do the checks. So let's do that. Flaps, to see if they wiggle and to see if they are actually working. And this is some other great feature by A2A, I believe. These are not static pictures. These are dynamic pictures and actually change based on how you use the airplane. As the airplane gets old or grows old with you while you fly, it might show broken flaps, broken ailerons, weird engine stuff that goes wrong. And these pictures actually change. So we should actually learn to carefully study them to see if everything looks in order. And it does. I also have a cheat sheet made available on the uncertifiedpilot.com that shows all the different faulty states of these pictures, so you know what to look for, which is quite useful. I don't think it's a cheat sheet actually. It's just a study sheet to know what can happen if an airplane grows old or the skyline grows old. Okay, let's move on. The wings, so these are the ailerons on this side. Also, in the real world, we should carefully study the leading edge here of the airplane to see if there are any dents or other weird stuff, if the glass of the lights and the landing lights here, the glass here, is not broken, well, that kind of stuff. But we just move on. Lights look intact to the lip. Ailerons. Thank you for the follow. Trism, thank you. Again, ailerons. We take a look here. Looks fine. Move on to this side. Stall warning we already checked. We removed the tie down. Fuel vent is clear. Wheel chocks we removed. We should also look for if the wheels are properly inflated. Well, we can't do that. We cannot do that here in Flight Sim. So we'll leave it there. But I would love to include that too. I would love A2A to include that kind of feature too. But I guess they have more stuff on their hands. Fuel drain. Let's do that. It's here on the front of the airplane. I should not look at the wing, I guess. Is it at the wing? Well, it's in it. Well, it's it. Yeah, it's about here, I guess. It's here on some kind of spot here or there. There are fuel vents here which we can check. So this is actual fuel from the wing, and also this picture can change. It can show contaminated fuel with water. So in this case it seems clear, so that's a good thing, but we should be very careful. Because if we fly with this fuel, contaminated fuel, we might get into trouble with a stuttering engine or whatever dangerous thing might happen. Then on top of the wing, we take a look if there's actual fuel in the wing, because the gauges in the cockpit can be wrong. Well, there is. There are 38 gallons in this wing, which is a good thing and seems to confirm what we saw on the gauges. Then on the nose side, oil between 9 and 6 quarts. I think it's called quarts, which is good. It shouldn't be lower than 6, or it can even fly on 4, but that's really dangerous. I don't know exactly how that works, but it should be between 9 and 6, I believe. So this is perfect, and also the color of the oil can change, and this is the golden brown proper color. There's an airplane. Where's an airplane? Oh, I'm twisting my neck too much. Oh, there it goes. I guess it's a Bonanza. The same Bonanza who is flying traffic patterns or some kind of a trip here. Okay, yeah, so that's the static port here. We checked that there's no stuff in there. It's clean. The intakes are clean, no bird nests. Then the front of the plane, overall structure looks good. Then fuel drain here beneath also looks good, no contamination. Static airport is over here, is clean. Again on the other wing, gallons a little bit less, 37, but that's okay. Here fuel drain looks good, no contamination. Wheel chocks removed, tie down removed, fuel vent over here is checked. Ailerons look good. Again, we should check the leading edge here and other stuff, glass, lights. Yeah. Wiggle of the flaps. It should have that wiggle, which is good. And also look at the hinges and stuff here, which looks good too. We're almost there. The tie down here is removed. Again, these look fine as well. Bolts are all in. Look good too. And the wiggle of the trim, yeah, seems okay too. Baggage door should be closed. It is now, I guess. It wasn't. Okay. And we already checked the pitot heat before, and it is working, and then we are back in the cockpit. My gosh, what weather. No nasty clouds. Perhaps this is this one on top of us. Not good flying weather, so we are not going to fly, we're going to taxi. We're going to go about this in a really slow and careful manner, and in the following episodes I will progress, and eventually we will fly and do all the fancy cool stuff that is part of PilotEdge and real-world flying. But I need to get familiar with this airplane step by step, and hopefully you enjoy following me along on this journey. Guys, thank you guys for watching and for following me. I'm really pleased that that you guys are here. And if you have any suggestions or correcting me on any stuff that I'm saying, let me know in chat, and I will have a look. I'm totally new to Twitch. I've been on Twitch for a couple of weeks now, watching other channels, and it's really fun. I really like the community here, and to meet you guys live. But I need to get some kind of a habit going here, looking at the chat and while doing stuff, and unmuting my mic before I start my stream, as I did in this particular episode, which is kind of funny, I guess. Okay, so we did the exterior pre-flight, so now we can finally start up the engine. I guess. Yeah, we can. So let's move on to that particular checklist then. Before engine starts, passengers, guys, are you ready? Do you have your baggage on board? Are you sitting comfortably? I hope you do. Thank you for following. Yeah, passengers' baggage on board. Seats and seat belts. Well, as you might have seen on my introductory movie, on my YouTube channel and on my site, I do have actual, well, I will turn off TrackIR for a moment. Off, yeah. I've actually got seat belts mounted on my office chair here. These are really official aviation seat belts, which are so cool. But perhaps for some of you this is too much, but I really like it. And don't get mistaken. If you really fasten your seat belts behind a flight simulator like I did now and strap it, it does give a sense of this is serious. I mean, obviously it's silly, but you'll be surprised what it does when you fasten your seat belts. I really like it, and my girlfriend also laughs at me while I do it, but she understands, I hope, and doesn't leave me. Okay. I did that. Next up, seat belts, cabin doors. Yeah, that seems quite obvious to close those. Close. I learned also that you should fasten your seat belts first before closing the door in a Cessna, because if you close the door first and then the seat belts, you won't succeed. So apparently that is the flow. Passengers briefing. So yeah, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm just viewing you as passengers. So I'm talking to you guys when this passenger briefing comes. I think that is quite useful. So what we're going to do is just taxi. I'm not going to fly today. I need to get used to the very basic procedures here. I guess that taxiing and shutting the engine down is a very good first kind of flight training lesson for me. So that's what we're going to do. Just a simple round here on 11 and then on the other side, and just move on in a circle. I guess that is okay. Pilot briefing. Well, I just did that. VMC, IMC, legal. Yeah, so that means visual meteorological conditions. I mean, my English isn't that good, but I guess that is it. And instrument meteorological conditions. Actually, it means VFR or IFR weather. Well, currently we can switch to the browser once more. These are the aviation charts that I've shown you guys, who were first here in the channel. But we can go to Sky Vector, and you can see that there's actually, these are green circles or well, buttons here. They change color, and if they are green, they show that there's actually VFR weather now at that particular airport, indicating that perhaps this entire area is VFR ready. But well, that isn't always the case. And also hearing the thunder roll, that doesn't make me very comfortable to fly, but still. I guess it's IMC. Also, when we look outside, let's switch back to the cockpit. Click and TrackIR on. You can see that the cloud ceiling might be too low. I mean, traffic patterns, if you would fly traffic patterns, they are usually on 1,000 feet AGL, so above ground level. Usually, most of the time, I guess 95% of the time. Otherwise, it is, I guess at all times, this is described in the airport diagram of the particular airport, which we're going to look at in future episodes too. But usually, you can assume that it's on 1,000 feet. Now, you should always, as a VFR pilot, be 500 feet below clouds, 2,000 feet horizontally separated from a cloud, and 1,000 above, I believe, with a minimum of 3 nautical miles of visibility. I believe that that's the case. And well, that kind of shows you that if the cloud ceiling is too low, then you are in trouble and you can't fly, because then otherwise you wouldn't have that separation measures, and well, you would fly in a cloud or be too close to a cloud. But that's also depicted in the various IMC, VMC indications on the map. You've got, that's also interesting to tell you perhaps. What I've read is that an airport can show VFR conditions, so the green buttons on the map, but it can also show blue buttons, which are marginal VFR weather conditions, which means it's still legal for a VFR pilot an ordinary private pilot to fly, but the conditions get that much deteriorated that it becomes very close to IFR. Thank you for following, guys. And so I guess, and then you can still fly, but it becomes quite challenging and dangerous too. I also read a few stories of real-world pilots who say, well, my personal limits, weather limits, are much more. How can I say that in English? Safer than marginal VFR. I mean, marginal VFR is even very close to IFR, and if you look at those kind of weather conditions, it's quite challenging to fly in those. So if you set your personal limits to say, well, a ceiling of 3,000 feet and at least 5 miles of visibility, even though you're illegal to fly in a 3-mile visibility condition, that really makes flying much more safe and comfortable, and that's what flying is all about, I believe. So I have no idea what my personal limitations are. I know that clear skies is a good start, and that these thunderstorms aren't a very safe condition for me to fly in. But anyway, that's some background information, and obviously we will learn more about that as this series goes on. Anyway, that's the briefing. Go on. Presets for engine start. Yeah. Let's turn on TrackIR again. Brake, test and verify firm. Well, we can do that. What I really don't like about all FSX versions or flight simulator versions, also prepared in general, is that you cannot press the brakes without releasing the parking brakes. What the hell is going on there? In the real world, I believe, but perhaps I'm mistaken, and that might explain, the parking brake isn't released when you press the brake, but I don't know. So what I'm going to do here to allow my Saitek panel to stay in sync, I release the parking brakes now and then use my rudder pedal to brake. And as you can see, my rudder pedal is moving correctly, differential braking, and this is working just perfectly. Now let's set the parking brake again. Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. When I press the brakes unintentionally, the parking brake releases. So I should remove my feet from my parking brakes here, or from my rudder pedal. Okay, so those are where parking brakes are verified. Is set, beacon light is still on, navigation light is still on, and it's not on, it's off, and it should only be on in night conditions or when it's really, really cloudy or foggy, I could say very low visibility conditions, which is not. Avionics master should be off. I put that in red because the avionics can be damaged. The electronics there behind the dashboard can be damaged if you turn on the engine and some electrical surge runs through the engine to the electrical system. When the electrical system is on, that can be damaging. So the avionics should be turned off before you start. That's a very important part. So that's off. Cowl flaps are fully open, which is the case. Those are some kind of air intakes or outtakes. I don't know how that works, but they are beneath the engine. And you can regulate the temperature of the engine, the cylinder head temperature and the oil temperature. In cold conditions, I thought, well, why not close the cowl flaps while you are starting up your engine? Because then the engine warms up much more quickly, right? But it seems that if you do that, then the engine warms up in a very irregular, not even way. So then some parts become hot and other parts don't, and that's really not good for, I guess, the physical cylinder stuff. I don't know, the metal in the cylinders. I guess that is not a good thing. So I left that one out and just warm up my engine always with open cowl flaps, as it is depicted on most checklists. Fuel tank selector to both. We should do that. No, I would like to go the other way. Yeah. That's that. Okay, so before engine start, checklist is completed. Engine start, batteries should be turned on. Not the alternator, only the batteries. If you put the alternator on right now, you have some loss of additional power to the battery. So it's only when the engine starts or is running, then the alternator makes sense, because then power is generated from the running engine, right? So you should only turn that one on once the engine is started, which makes sense. Battery is turned on. Fuel pump on. Oh yeah, this is a flow. So this is something that you should memorize, because otherwise you should do these. Some items you should do in a few seconds only. So then you might be too late if you're just reading the checklist. And I've actually memorized it. So batteries are on. We should now prime the engine with fuel. And the checklist shows 3 to 5 seconds. I'm using 3 seconds because otherwise I easily flood my engine. Thank you for following. Can I read that? No, I should actually make my screen a little bit bigger. Sorry guys for the TrackIR weirdness here. Yeah. So otherwise I flood my engine. So that's why I'm only using 3 seconds at the most. And that seems to work up to now. So 3 seconds fuel prime. Okay, so batteries are on, finger with the fuel pump, hand at the mixture. Fuel pump is on. Now look at the fuel flow gauge here. Full mixture in, 1, 2, 3, and cut off. And then we turn off the fuel pump again. And now our engine is primed, I guess. Now we can start up. So 1/4 inch open on the throttle. Mixture is still off. Parking brakes are set. Feet on the rudder pedal. We should now actually press our brakes, but I'm not doing that because otherwise it releases the parking brakes, and well, that's something I would not like to see happening. Avionics are still off. Then we check whether our propeller area is clear. Let's reset TrackIR here. Yeah. It is clear. Hand at the ignition switch. Clear. Prop. I'd like to shout it out either way. There it goes. Yeah, full mixture. 1200 RPM. And now we can see the oil pressure coming up, and it should be in the green within 30 seconds. And it seems that it does, so that's a good thing. That's a check. And we should now turn on the alternator, the generator. Bloop. There you can see the ammeter indicating that the battery is now charging, and it is extra charging because we have drained the battery during these checks, so that's a good thing. We should now stick to 1200 RPM and lean the mixture for ground operations. And that's max, that's peak RPM. Is that what it's called? Peak RPM. Lean for maximum RPM. Yeah. So what you do is you lean very slowly the mixture until you see a very slight dip in the RPM. You can also hear it in the engine. There it goes. And so you then push in the mixture a bit, and then you can say, well, that's peak. That's peak RPM. And then you reset to 1000 RPM. You can see that dip in RPM better on higher RPM rates. And that's why you use 1200. And at that point we can turn on the avionics, and I've set that the automatically my headset is in, and so the sound volume is a little bit lower and you can hear me better, I believe. Also a shout out to the drivers, that the software drivers that I'm using to assign all these different buttons on my Saitek panels, because when I bought Saitek stuff, the drivers were a total crap, which was very frustrating for buying about a few $100s of equipment. So luckily enough, there was a guy in Germany, Ulrich, who had made this website, SPAD.neXt, who started his own software to make a great driver configuration tool for those Saitek panels. and he did a great job. Actually, I was part of the beta team, making sure that that software could really talk to the A2A airplane, and well, we did it, or he did it, I should say. All credits to him, which is great software. So if you're having Saitek panels, go to search on Google on SPAD.neXt, get that software. I think it's about 20 bucks, something like that. And you can configure everything, and in a very diverse way. You can even assign a complete essay behind a switch if you flip it. You can do multiple keyboards presses. It's really cool. So in my case, my avionics switch not only turns on the avionics but also plugs in my headset. You can do all kinds of that stuff. Also, I've programmed some switches here to control XSplit, my switch stream. So I can switch now to my map, bloop, just using my joystick, which is not that difficult and not that revolutionary, but it just works in a very graphical way. So a shout out to SPAD.neXt, great job, thank you so much for allowing me to use my panels in the exact same way as I would like to use it. So the engine is on, and as you can see at 1000 RPM, I will turn on TrackIR, the engine is slowly warming up. Thank you for following FXX Gurus. The cylinder head temperature is getting into the green, and the oil temperature is now at the first notch here, the 75 degree. We can safely taxi now, even though these are not in the green yet, if we do not use high RPM. So if you stay below 1400 RPM, I've read that is still safe to taxi and allows the engine to warm up. That whole temperature thing really becomes an issue before you do your run up. Then the oil temperature and the cylinder head temperature should be in the green. That's the whole idea. Okay, we should go on with the checklist because we didn't complete that. Flow. Reset the retract flaps. Retract, yeah, obviously. Plop, plop, plop. And they go up again. Yeah. Flaps are up. Cabin light, heat defrost, blah blah blah. No, that's fine. Okay, so that's cool. Then the before taxi to runway. Avionics are on. We already did that. Transponder verify set to 1000 or 1200. That's the standard VFR transponder code. Again, if you're interested in ATC and all that super cool PilotEdge stuff, go to PilotEdge. It's an online multiplayer network of pilots, serious flight simulator, flight training guys like me who like to learn how to talk to ATC while flying, and they include VFR flying, IFR flying, the whole bunch, as real as it gets. It's awesome. And also everything seems to communicate with the network, or is communicating with the network. So my transponder codes, my frequencies. So I should really verify that is set correctly. So it's now turned to on 1200. Also something I learned which was kind of interesting, I believed, was that I thought that the transponder should always be on the on mode when you are on the ground taxiing, and only to altitude mode, the next step there, as you can see, alt, before you take off and while you're flying, and then when you land and clear the runway, then you turn it to on again. Well, that's not always the case, because some airports require you, because they have some radar surveillance stuff, require you to turn it to altitude mode even while you are taxiing, like John Wayne Airport. And if you listen to live ATC or live ATC, if you check in on PilotEdge and listen to real-time chat, real-time ATC communications, you can also hear that controllers at John Wayne are asking pilots to turn their transponder to altitude mode, which is interesting to know. And that is depicted on the airport diagram, I believe. It is displaying, well, hey, you should turn your transponder to altitude mode at all times here. Yeah, so let's continue. ADF VOR radios we don't need. Common radio is set to the CTAF frequency of Oceano. This is Oceano Airport, so this is not controlled by any tower or so. This is an uncontrolled airport, so we are actually announcing everything we do here on this airport, and other pilots check in. Thank you for following, Mayhem. Thank you. So that might seem easy, and it kind of is, but at the same time it doesn't feel that safe, because pilots can do whatever they want here. Well, obviously they need to follow some basic rules, but also they are not obliged to even make radio announcements. So imagine flying a traffic pattern, and at some particular moment you see some Cessna just coming in on final while you're on base. Well, that actually happens in the real world. So it's a really dangerous place. Most flight accidents happen on uncontrolled airports. Well, that's the reason why it's quite dangerous. But for my flight training, I start here because the whole ATC part is very new to me, and these are very basic announcements that I still should practice while running and cycling and under the shower. That's the whole idea why I chose Oceano. Also, it's the recommended starting airport by PilotEdge to start here. Also because there are some nice next level airports here, which are quite easily accessible here. Santa Maria Airport is a Delta airspace, which is the next step up if you like to improve your ATC skills. It's a towered airport, which is quite useful for practice. Again, CTEF. So we're now tuned in on the frequency of Oceano. 118.3 on my standby frequency on COM1 is the tower of that nearby airport, I guess San Luis. And if we turn on that, we are actually assigned, it's a more complex story, but actually all tower frequencies within a specific region within PilotEdge are connected, because there are not that many controllers working for PilotEdge, so they need to control many airports at the same time. And so various tower frequencies of different airports are connected on one frequency. So chances are now that we can listen other pilots flying into other airports far away from here. But it's not that busy currently on PilotEdge, I guess. Well, doesn't matter. Will come next time. Radio 2 checked ATIS departure. Yeah, ATIS, of course, ATIS. Let's do that. Weather, information, broadcasted on radio. Let's do that. And I will switch to the map, so you guys can follow me along. Which ATIS should we take? This one. I guess that's more nearby. It doesn't really matter. 120.6. I already tuned that in, I think. Yeah. So let's switch back. 120.6, and I can now turn on the COM2. And once I do, I will write that down, because that's something I need to practice too. And this might seem silly to some of you guys who are already very experienced with this, that I need to practice writing down ATIS information, but I do. And rest assured I will learn, and that won't be an issue anymore, but well, let's see. Feel free to ride with me along. Let's see if we can catch this ATIS in a good manner. So let's turn COM Radio 2 on and have a look.
San Luis Airport information, Delta 18407, wind 0906 at 8, visibility greater than 20 miles, sky condition, ceiling 3,700, broken, temperature 13.2.10, altimeter 2987, ILS, runway 11 in use, landing and departing, runway 11, VFR aircraft, stay direction of flight, all aircraft read back short instructions, advise controller on initial contact, you have Delta.
Delta.
San Luis Airport information, Delta.
Not that bad. Not that bad. This is what I actually got. Also, I'm using 4Flight, guys. 4Flight is yeah, there's a lot of reflection here. You don't see it. Perhaps you can see it better like this. I didn't catch a lot, but I've got some. This is 4Flight. This is a real-world weather aviation, not weather, just an aviation app, planning app. It's kind of like SkyVector on an app with many more real-time tools and stuff, which is just great. And you can use it for Flight Simulator too. So that's what I'm using. I didn't connect it with Bluetooth to my Flight Simulator. That's also a feature. So you can actually see your own airplane on the map flying as it would in real life if you're connected to Bluetooth, but I don't do that because I like to interpret maps myself and figure out my position just studying the map. So I didn't do that. San Luis Delta, that's the information code. I've got the winds 8 knots, and more, well, there's more than 20 miles visibility, a ceiling at 3,700. Well, that is much higher than I previously thought, actually. Let's turn TrackIR on. I mean, it seems lower to me. No, and why that matters is we could actually fly traffic pattern now if we like to, also because there are no clouds over Oceano. But also if they were high enough to allow us to have enough separation between the cloud ceiling. And altimeter 2987. There's a lot of information in that ATIS chunk, piece of information. What did I say? 2987. Come on, 2987. Yeah, here. Which makes sense with the airport elevation. It's also good to check when you're on the ground to check whether this airport elevation corresponds or whether the current altimeter setting reads out the correct airport elevation as a sync, right? So then you know that it's also the proper altimeter setting. And runway 11, yeah, but there's a lot of information in the ATIS information that isn't that useful. Mostly the winds are important. Obviously the information code is important because that's something that you communicate to tower. In this case this is an uncontrolled tower, so it doesn't make sense, but isn't that useful. But if we would fly inbound to some other airport that is towered, then we should always mention we've got information delta or alpha, so that the guys in the tower know that we have the current information, which is a safe thing to know. And the altimeter setting 2987, which we already put in. Oh, not that bad. It's cool. Okay, that's the ATIS. Altimeter was reset. Heading indicator. Cross-check with compass. Yeah, so I didn't put the HSI in. You can do that with A2A Simulations Skyline, and I guess with all A2A's airplanes. I didn't do that, again, for the basics. I like to fly and master my VFR, IFR skills in the most basic, classic Skylane configuration as possible. So now my gyro, I don't know if you say that or how it's called, just a heading indicator, will drift over time and show the wrong heading based on precession. I don't know what the technical term is, but it's something that is happening while we're flying, that the heading indicator is changing without us really knowing that it is. So we should always cross-check this heading indicator because it's an entirely different system based on an original classic compass. So that compass reads out 180, so that's 200, about a heading of 200, and that kind of corresponds, I guess. Yeah, it's not entirely 200, so that's a good thing. And we should do this each, well, I guess about each 15 minutes or something like that, just to make sure that that heading indicator stays on track. So we cross-check that. Clock, set temperature and Zulu time. Well, that isn't really that important, but I do that, and I wondered. We go through these different times, Zulu times. Sometimes ATC refers to Zulu times. Then it's handy that you've already set that in. I guess this is universal time here, uniform tango, I guess. Universal time, and this should be the Zulu time, but it isn't really, right? What's the current Zulu time? Because last time I checked, that didn't correspond. The last blip, well, it is. Here on Sky Vector, it is. 1.8. Okay, so I don't know. Remember that incorrectly. So that's Zulu time, and we can also change this to temperature, which is handy for the pitot heat, because if it is freezing and we've got a lot of humidity or moist clouds in the area, and we're flying through clouds, then we have chance of icing, and then we should be aware of that and turn on our pitot heat. If there's no freezing, if there are no clouds, then you shouldn't worry about your pitot heat. I guess the regulations, I've read that it's safer to already turn, if there are clouds and you're flying through clouds and the temperature is about 5 degrees Celsius, or I guess starting from 10 Celsius, which seems a little bit high to me, but let's say 5 Celsius or 5 degrees Celsius, you should already turn your pitot heat on just to make sure, just to be safe. Airport diagram, study expected taxi. Yeah, so that's a good thing. So if we were on a controlled airport now, we would check in with ground and ask to depart from a particular runway, or we are assigned a particular runway, and they will say, well, taxi this direction, that direction, and then take off. And then it's very good if you have this airport diagram with you, so you can study beforehand what kind of routes there are, what all the taxi names, taxiways are called, so then you can make sense of that instruction, that ATC instruction. So we should do that if in case we were on a controlled airport, which we are not. We don't have to ask for any clearance from anyone because we're on a controlled airport. Thank you for following, guys. Airport diagram transponder reset to, yeah, we still have 1200 because there's no tower that assigns us any new heading bug set. I've seen various procedures here, guys who set this heading bug to the runway heading, other guys who set it to the wind direction. I guess that depends on how what the wind direction or speed is. Thank you for following me, Marinen 87. Thank you for following me. Thank you. And what we are going to do next time, I don't know, let's set it to a runway heading, and a runway heading would be 29, I guess, not 11, because chances are we would fly towards the ocean, because that's where the wind is usually coming from. 29 for next time. Just leave it there. Okay. Oh no, we shouldn't, because actually we now have 8 knots of 8 knots coming from 096, and that means that we actually need to correct for crosswind while we are taxiing, which is a good thing to practice. So to help us, let's set the heading bug to that wind direction. Yeah, 096 about here. It's fine. Heading bug, taxi light on, we don't need that. Oil and cylinder head temperature, well, it should be in the green right now. Yeah, it obviously is. Navigation log we don't have. Taxi to the runway, check brakes, crosswind yoke correction, soft fuel yoke correction. Well, we are not on a soft field. This is all, well, this is not a soft field, so we shouldn't do that. And check the turn and slip coordinator and heading indicator. Again, guys, this is the checklist that I made. It's freely available on uncertifiedpilot.com. Visit the website, download it, and you can follow me along in these checks and use it yourself if you have an A2A airplane or a Cessna Skylane. Let's get taxiing. Guys, the first time when I'm releasing my parking brake and actually move. Also funny with Flight Simulator is that actually the airplane was already moving, as you can see. That was the line where we started here. Twisting my neck here. So while we are running the engine, the airplane was actually moving forward very slowly, which to me seems so unreal. Why is it doing that? I mean, any developer on Prepared or Flight Simulator would notice that and just fix it. I mean, it's silly. I mean, in a run-up, I can imagine that it would move forward slowly, but just in idle, well, again, frustration by a Flight Simulator user. Remove the parking brakes here, and let's use very extensive differential braking here, and we're very low. I would like to reset my TrackIR. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Very slowly. Now we are going to cross runway 11, which we should actually announce on the CTAF radio here on PilotEdge. So let's do our first announcement. Before we do, always look outside if you see any incoming traffic, because if you see, then, well, it doesn't make sense to make an announcement. We can just wait for that traffic to come in and land. Same goes for the other side. Well, there is no traffic there, no traffic here, so we can make an announcement for any guys who are coming into Oceano to land. That's the whole idea. We're on CTAF, so that's a good thing. I've practiced this. Let's do this. Let's make a turn. Oceano traffic. Skylane Papa Hotel Tango India Mike is crossing runway 11 at the numbers Oceano, or something like that. You can also say crossing runway 11 midfield, which isn't that useful, but again, it's nice to say it. Well, a little bit more quick. What I'm noticing is that I don't like that I'm that low behind the glare shield here. I need to really stretch up to look over the dashboard. Now, the Skyline is much more... thank you for following, guys. The Skyline has a much bigger engine, and I saw in some videos that it is actually much higher up from the pilot perspective than a Skyhawk, but this seems a little bit too exaggerated. So I'm just going to park and brake set. I mean, if I'm now just in my, I cannot even see the taxiway, which seems a little bit too much. So I'm going to change that. EZDOK. I need to press that button, I guess. Oh, you guys won't see that menu. This is a little bit too much. Oh, we're gonna get this. Ah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Let's go to camera again and turn that bottom off. Better. And let's hide the menu bar. There we are. Okay, sorry guys, just needed to I needed to adjust that. I like your headset, thank you. Let's remove the parking brake. Yeah, I really love this headset. I really have searched the internet quite a lot to find one. Basically, I would like to have a headset that is a little bit aviation-like, so a little bit bulky, and well, there are many more. There are many headsets out there. This is the Turtle Beach. My entire hardware and software configuration, the stuff that I have, you can find on CertifiedPilot.com at the add-on page. Just look for it, and you can see for each category what software I use, including this Turtle Beach headphone, and it works absolutely great. USB, some other kind of buttons and switches there that I can use. So okay, so taxiing works. Also interesting to note, by the way, if you're looking very carefully, you can see that the speed indication is already alive, and it shows a much higher speed, I guess, based on experience, I guess, than our current actual speed, because we're not going that fast. Why is that the case? Wind direction. We're now taxiing into the wind, so this is coming into the pitot heat, and obviously that is indicating a higher speed than our ground speed. Now we're taxiing, this is going well. I'm also very pleased with our constant taxi speed. So perhaps we should remember this RPM setting, which is about 950. And again, this is a little bit dependent on the wind. So we have a little bit of a headwind here of 8 knots. So I guess that usually it should be 900 RPM. But it's good to not variate too much in RPM settings, because that's bad for the engine. So a constant RPM rate is good. Engine is still warm. Everything is in the green, which is a good thing. The Bonanza in front of us, or Mooney, I don't know what it is doing a run-up, which I would like to do too. And then we're just going to taxi around back to the ramp, and then I'll shut down. And that would be the second episode. And then next time, tomorrow, I would like to fly, guys. I'm not doing that right now because I would like to drill and practice these procedures. So I guess after this episode I will memorize those and practice those. Okay, there the guys go. Here is the run-up area. So there is what we need to taxi to. There the guy goes. This is a drone. This is not a real pilot on PilotEdge. These are the drones that just fly real airways or real flight plans, which is very much fun. There's also a lot of military activity we're all gonna see when we gonna fly South California region. Okay. Well, we shouldn't actually turn that much. We should actually turn into the wind for a run-up. Why? Because the engine becomes quite warm when we do a run-up, and so we can use any wind or every wind, incoming wind that there is to cool down the engine. Obviously when we are flying, a lot of air is coming into the engine, which naturally cools the engine. But as we're standing on the ground, there's a lot of possibility there that we overheat the engine. So any wind that could come in is a good thing. And that's why we usually do a run up into the wind. Okay, so we're here. Let's do a run up. Let's do a run up. How to do a run up? We have no clue. Let's go to the checklist. Oh yeah, right. Taxi, by the way, the previous checklist item 11, taxi to runway. We didn't check our brakes, although they worked. We didn't do it formally and consciously. We need to do that next time. I didn't do the crosswind correction at all. I totally forgot about that. I should actually move my yoke into the right positions to counter for the wind, because otherwise the airplane can actually be thrown on its side in more extreme conditions, which you should always avoid. So we should have done that. Totally forgot about that while I was talking. I guess that's a disadvantage of doing Twitch. I'm not blaming you, but I should have remembered. That's the main message. Yeah, so run up, position, into the wind, we did that. Parking brakes is set, taxi lights are off. I put that item in because at night it's a good thing to turn them off, because otherwise incoming traffic gets blinded by your taxi lights, which is, makes sense. Flight control checks. Let's do that. So if we turn to the left, then the right aileron gets down. Yeah, well, that's good. Other side, yeah, that's good. Let's turn around. Elevators, and let's see if the whoa, sorry guys, without pressing the brakes. Yeah, rudder is working too. Com1 radio, swap to tower, we don't need it because we are on an uncontrolled airport. Com is already set. Temperature, cylinder head temperature is far in the green. Well, not that far in the green anymore, but it's in the green. And oil temperature is also in the green, so we can safely do our run up. Propeller and mixture, full RPM. We did a full mixture. Now again, we're going to do the magneto check. This is also a flow that we should memorize. I kind of memorized it, so I'm just going to do it. Okay, so 1800 RPM. Here we are. Seems okay. Let's go. We don't see any annunciator messages here, so everything seems okay. Cylinder head temperature good. Oil pressure is good. All seems okay. Then we go to the left magneto, a drop, slide drop. It was a 125 drop, maximum of 175 drop, and there shouldn't be more than a 50 RPM difference between the left and right magneto. Okay, so back to both is correct, and oh, that was off. I'm a beginner. And here we can see also a similar kind of drop, which is okay. I've put in all the basic spark plugs here in the A2A simulation configuration, so eventually we'll come to fouled plugs and we need to clean those, which is going to be fun too, but that's in a later episode. Hopefully I can keep my engine clean, but no, stay at 1800. Now we need to check the propeller, if that is working. The blue handle, blue lever. So let's turn it all the way backwards. RPM drop. Clearly. You can also hear it in the sound. Governor is working. I believe it's a governor that is regulating that propeller RPM stuff. Then manifold pressure, if we again pull it back, it's a little rise, which is a good thing. And the third check to make sure that the propeller is working is the oil pressure. It should drop but then stabilize. Oil pressure drop. And it stabilizes. Okay, so we know that the propeller is actually working. Then we're gonna turn on the landing light to see if the battery is actually charging, if the alternator is working. So let's have a look at the ammeter here. If you see a little blip, plop, yeah. So it is charging, which is a good thing. So the ammeter is also, the alternators, the generator is working. Then we do a full idle, which is something I did so many times previously in Flight Simulator, but actually you almost never run your engine on idle. Almost all the time at an airport it's on 1000 RPM. Well, we didn't see any annunciator messages there. Oil pressure was still okay, so idle, the throttle stop also worked. And then back at 1000 RPM. We could keep in the mixture here and then ask Tower to take off, or announce here that we're going to take off, and there we go. But we're not going to. I'm going to do that next episode. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I would like to drill and practice these procedures first. So now we're going to reset to ground operations. So again, going first to 1200 RPM, because then we see the RPM drop a little bit better. Then lean until we see a small RPM drop. There it is. Then put it mixture a little bit in, so that kind of like is max peak RPM, which is the proper setting on ground operations. There we are. Let's see if there's no incoming traffic, because we're gonna cross here again. There's no plane there. No. Thank you for the follow, Maxton1. Thank you so much. Let's go, and let's announce that we're crossing the runway. Still on CTEF, yeah. Oceano traffic, Skyline Papa Hotel Tango India Mike is taxiing down runway 29 back to the ramp, Oceano. Okay, let's do that, and let's do it a little bit quick. And we should also in this case announce when we cleared the runway. Ah, there's the first taxi at the first intersection here on the right. There we go. I so much like the EZDOK head shakes here. Okay, on the brakes. Shouldn't use that much power, but... Okay, get on the ramp. And get off the runway. On this taxi line. Yeah, there we go. Oceano traffic, Skyline Papa Hotel Tango Unimark is clear runway 29, Oceano. No, I'm gonna go behind these aircraft. Some lady takes pictures. Yeah, we're so cool. I would have loved a picture myself. I love ORBX. This is all ORBX scenery. Southern California, just released a few weeks ago. Amazing scenery. I'm also using Global and Vector. You can all see that on uncertifiedpilot.com. You can see my entire hardware and software configuration. I believe it's the best scenery out there, and also very much like the people flow and object flow and all the stuff they do to really look these well, airports really feel like they are alive and crowded, which makes it much more fun to visit those airports. Okay, there's a lady here. Make sure that we don't... No, she's just walking circles because she's totally insane. Yeah, let's take the parking spot 1 here. There's the taxi, the fuel pump station. Also fun to do that sometime, which we should. Differential braking here, and now the back wheels, not the front, not the nose wheel, but the back wheels should be on that line. So it's about here. Okay, parking brakes are set. Now I'm curious to learn how we should properly shut down the Skyline. In old times, it was just switching off the. In old times, I mean, in the previous versions in Flight Simulator, when I was just a kid, I just turned off the starter switch, which isn't the right thing to do. Skip. 22 shut down. Parking brakes set. Navigation lock, we don't care. Transponder, we don't care. Avionics master off. Yeah. So as we should have checked that the avionics were off before we did the engine start, now we should make sure that the avionics are off before we shut down the engine, because otherwise an electrical surge could go through the airplane, through the electrical system, and damage the avionics, which we should avoid at all times. So avionics off, then the engine also becomes quite louder because my headset is automatically turned off too. Yeah, which I programmed myself. And then it's just cylinder head temperature stabilized. That's something that I should check. Well, is it stabilized? I guess it's stabilized. It's not that hot and it seems normal. So let's shut it down. Then wait until the prop stops. I love these wiggles of the airplane, the cylinders. It's great. And then we switched the ignition to off, and then we turn the batteries and the generator to off. Silence, my gosh, weird. Lights then should be off. Beacon always stays on, as I explained at the beginning of the episode. gamma lights we didn't use. Off air windows can close. Well, let's close this window. I want to leave that one open and just open the door because that gives a sense that we are actually arrived at an airport. I cannot wait to fly, guys. We're going to do that next time, tomorrow, I promise. I just needed to do this to get familiar with the airplane, get familiar with Twitch, and also just to really drill this, really practice these basic procedures, because we're going to do that a lot often. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, thank you for the follow, Mr. 4Kea5. Thank you for the follow. In the beginning of these episodes, the first 5 or 10 episodes, I don't know how long it takes, but this is a very slow-paced beginning because I'm a newbie and I need to learn this. Obviously, as this season progresses, I will get much more familiar with the airplane, acquire more skills, and then things get much more active, dynamic, and, well, a higher pace here. So please stick with me if you are interested in my journey in becoming an instrument-rated flight simulator pilot. Thank you for following, Toms. So that's the whole idea. And season 1 is all dedicated to acquiring my private pilot proficiency in flight simulator. And season 2 will be dedicated to acquiring my instrument-rated proficiency, and it's all measured along the PilotEdge check rides. PilotEdge is that multiplayer online network that we're on right now too. Other real-world pilots that are flying and controlled by real-world professional ATC controllers, which is awesome, and they also provide check rides. Thank you for following, guys. And so I use those check rides as check rides to see if I can really demonstrate those flight skills, which is very cool. So eventually we will get there, but first I need to get familiar with these basic techniques. So that's why I'm starting very easy, and gradually it becomes much more dynamic, I hope. But if you're interested in my journey and learning and getting familiar with PilotEdge and Flight Simulator, stick around, and we will have a blast of a time, I believe. So then cabin doors, cowl flaps, fuel selector. We can set to the low wing side. Well, there's no low wing side here because we're not on some kind of edge here to prevent cross feeding. I set it to the left side as a default kind of setting. Control wheel lock set. So we need to push in the yoke and put the control wheel lock there, which is so awesome. I really like it. Yeah, and then the door is open and the passengers can leave. Guys, you can leave now, says the checklist. I really appreciate you being here, but the checklist says that, yeah. Pedo tube cover can be put on again. Well, actually, I think that is rubbish in Southern California. I mean, if you're in Alaska or something or somewhere cold, that might make sense, but no, I don't, so I'm not going to do that. I've never seen a Cessna here, at least in the Netherlands, that had its pedo tube cover on. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to do that. Tau aircraft we don't need. Wheel chock sets. Yeah, let's do that. Wheel chock sets. I like those. So we're going to put on those. No, not that window. I need that window. Wheel chocks on, and let's do the tie down because there are thunderstorms, so it's safe. In the PTO we don't do. Okay. And as you can see now, here are the tie downs. And the wheel chocks are here. Yeah, they're here. Also like that in the previous version of Prepared, and I guess 2.5, I upgraded recently to 3.1. There was also some white circle here, and they fixed that in 3.1, which, well, looks much more real, obviously. Some white circle here, somehow the flight simulator or the it couldn't generate the ground, or I don't know what was happening there. It was weird, and now it is fixed, so that's a good thing. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for following me and joining me in this adventure. Hopefully I see you next time. I'm gonna stream weekly a couple of times, I guess. I was always interested in aviation, and in the last few months I tried out experiment with Flight Simulator on a, well, not a daily basis, but many times a week, and I'm just loving Flight Simulator. So I'm expecting that I will fly each and every day. or a couple of times a week. I have no schedule yet because I don't feel comfortable doing that, but it will be around this time after work. So yeah, that's about it. If you're interested, follow me along. And if you would like to know more about my project, my flight training program, all my videos will be also every Twitch video will be uploaded to YouTube. On my there's a playlist there, Learn to Fly, which will feature all the episodes of every season. So if you missed anything, you can check that out and follow me along. And all other stuff I will tweet on my Twitter handle. Just search for Uncertified Pilot. I post pictures and other stuff that I come across on Flight Simulator, on learning videos and stuff. So if you're interested, you can find me there. And well, that's it. We'll just see where it goes. Thank you so much for following. And hopefully I will see you next time. I have a really cool outro, I believe. And I set it on this switch. Guys, see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
I'm passing 3,500, 715. 715, 134.125.